Thank you, Prof. Pottinger, for meeting with me again today. We've appreciated what you've shared in our last two segments. The first, looking at the types of migration, maybe some of the reasons that people migrate. The second, looking at the impact of migration, both on those who are left behind in country and those who move forward. And today, what we'll do is spend some time discussing how to mitigate against the traumatic loss that migration represents. So why don't we just get straight to it? How can we, people are going to migrate for economic reasons, for other reasons. What can we do to help improve the process?
One of the things that came out of the research project that I did was I developed sort of like a checklist. So I'm saying, before migrating, the more checks you can make of these factors, it means that you are putting a plan in place that can help to reduce some of these consequences. And so if time permits, it's not a lengthy checklist. I'll just sort of not read, but just sort of highlight and speak to some of them. All right, but the very first take-home message is preparation. Mm-hmm. As much as we're trying to reduce the distress and the anguish on both parent side and the child side, we cannot not talk to the child that you're going away. You cannot not do that. That really is one of the sore points that have stuck with the children. It doesn't matter how many years have gone by. They will say, she never said bye. She never told me she was going. So we just can't do that. So informing them that this is a plan, and keeping them informed, that yes, you may not wish to inform too early before there is a definite go ahead because the embassy hasn't granted visas. I'm not saying necessarily that you don't have to do it months before, but at least they do need to know once there's a definite transition coming up to let them know that, this is the plan. If it is that you are not coming back for a time period, do not promise, I'm just going to be away for 6 months or whatever. If that's lying to the child, they lose trust in you. So just sort of eliminate any false information like that. I think it's also important to carefully identify a substitute household and family. A lot of the stories have come from children who the parents went away, put them with a family friend or even a relative who used them to be the housekeeper, to babysit their children, to help them to vend in the market, didn't go to school regularly, etc. So it really is important to research the home, the household, and the members in that household. And the members in that household, it's not an ideal world, but as much as possible, try and see if you can identify persons whose parenting style is similar to yours. So if you have an authoritative style and you put someone with an authoritarian, a very controlling, don't have no say, or somebody who allows you to just do anything, that's confusing to the child. So as much as possible is to try and see how you can match them with caregivers, surrogate caregivers who are similar in your values, in your disciplinary practices, etc. So it's a lot of planning work here. I think also the informing the children, getting the children involved in the decision making. So, letting them know, okay, so I'm thinking of letting you stay with Auntie so-and-so. Get them involved. It's not just to say, okay, you're going to go with Auntie so-and-so when I leave. But try and get them involved, let them have a say. That goes a long way because they felt part of this decision for you to migrate, rather than it was just done and then you presented it to them and they now have to just deal with it. Sometimes, and I get this, the surrogate parent doesn't feel that they should. They fear disciplining the child because it's not theirs. And what will people say? And, and unfortunately, Jamaicans think discipline is beating. I'm not talking about beating, but children need discipline. They need withdrawal of privileges whenever they don't do something right. But sometimes I find that the substitute caregiver, the surrogate parent, is fearful of disciplining. And so the child is sort of brought up without those rules now, which again is not healthy for a child. So it's important to allow, have that discussion with the surrogate parent, give them permission. I'm not saying to be it, but to use appropriate disciplinary practice like withdrawal of a privilege, and in conjunction with the parent overseas, the child needs to see that surrogate parent and parent overseas communicate frequently, regularly, so everybody's on the same page. All right, so that's a big thing for me in terms of that preparation. I think as well, the child's school should be informed. And I say this because many times the child returns to school. Migration is touted as positive in the community. The teachers are seeing a fall off in schoolwork, can't understand why.
Don't understand it.
No. So to me, just like how you would have informed if a parent had died, you'd have gone to the school and said, Mary Jo experienced a loss, her dad died or whatever. Migration, parental migration is a loss. So I really think it's to inform the school so that the child who's left behind can have that sort of a guidance counselor, nurse, kind of looking out for anything, the teachers, etc. And another important thing to do with the school as well is to time it. Try as much as possible to time the migration with when school ends at the end of the academic year. Nothing is more harrowing for a child to join a school in the middle of a year when everybody have their cliques already. And that even if there were change in schools in Jamaica, that is frightening to a child to go into a grade in the middle of a school year and everybody have their friends. So as much as possible, it's to try and say how to, if the paperwork comes through, how to delay it, delay the visit going up until, more towards the end of the school year. Those are the points that I'd make in terms of the schooling. I find that when you utilize the support systems, church, organized groups, community centers where you can go and learn to swim and play football, but those sort of supervised, organized activities, I find that provides a tool for the child to vent some of their
frustration, conflictual feelings.
Yes, all of that. It can also help them be a distraction. It helps them to develop a talent if they're learning to swim or whatever. It provides them with camaraderie, group. You understand me? So I find that support system, parents before they migrate, checking that out, because I don't think she'll be the surrogate parent who's now going to run around and try and find this out. Identify them, put the surrogate parent in touch that they can continue this, but then have that discussion with the surrogate parents. I find that also is something that, another thing, and this may sound very simple, it's actually giving the child your address. Not just the phone number. With tech, they have the phone and they WhatsApp and all of that stuff. But you'll say, so where mommy lives now? They don't know. They have no clue, and that just bothers them. So let them have an address. But in addition to that, even if there's a regular texting that you do with the child throughout the week, etc., I find it very helpful to have some predictability to contact. So I usually say to the parent, set aside a time that you are going to have a decent conversation with this child. So, and that takes priority. You're not going to go out. If it is Sunday night between 6 and 10, the child knows mommy going to call between 6 and 8, whatever it is. And there's that predictability. And they also know that I'm at the priority of mommy's list, because come hell or high water, she's going to call me at that time. It doesn't matter what's happening in her life. And that makes a child feel so important to the parent to know that it doesn't matter what happens. Mommy is going to check in with me between 6 to 8 on a Sunday evening or whatever time it is. When they do that check-in, it's not just something I find that parents will do is, are you behaving? How's your schoolwork? No, the child wants you to talk about, I met this boy, you said, mommy, and I like him. The little things that if you were there, should have said to you. So it is not just about, I hope you're listening to auntie so-and-so and obeying her, It needs to be a discussion so the child feels you're still part of my life. And that I find is something that when the parents do call, they're so worked up and anxious that they're giving trouble, and to auntie so-and-so and whatever it is. And so they spend a lot of the time, and it's more a hard, like a discipline, examining, interrogating conversation rather than a pleasant chit-chat where you're still getting to know your child. Yeah.
That was great. I'm going to just reiterate, having special predictable time, ensuring that the conversation is not just questions and commands, but also a conversation where you're getting to know the person that's developing with you, getting to know their interest, having them freely share, and perhaps even lead parts of the conversation. Preparation is key. That includes figuring out where the child is going to be, making sure that the child doesn't get confused because you have 3 or 4, 2 different parenting styles between the two of you. And you also mentioned preparation for the child in the home, preparation at the school so that they can have adequate support, preparation in the community if the community is supportive, like, for example, a church or so. And then also the disclosure. A lot of people might think, who haven't experienced that disclosure is easy. Sometimes I think the feeling of guilt gets in the way of actually speaking. It's so powerful. The feeling of guilt and shame and the conflict on the adult part. And so the disclosure is really important because the child or the adolescent cannot make sense of it if you don't disclose. And if you're really struggling with that part, see if there's somebody that can help you with that appropriate communication with the child. It sounds like it's paramount.
All right, let me just shift a little bit to when they reunite, because I think that is also part of the whole migration spectrum. Because with whether it is a parental migration or serial migration, sometimes the children do reunite with the parent overseas in the parent's adopted country. And we have found that oftentimes that reunification occurs during adolescence, whether it is because the process took so long, the process of filing took so long, or the parents thinking that I need to bring them up a little before university so they get into the high school system so that they can get the opportunities for the university, etc. But we do find that most times when the parent has left the child as a young child, the child reunites with the parent as an adolescent. Now, that is important for us to process. Because when you are taking up an adolescent, you are uprooting them from the family that they have been building over the last 6-7 years when you are away, the school friends that they have had, the community resources, all of that stuff. That is one thing. You're also uprooting them in an adolescent developmental phase when they are trying to find their identity and had established an identity with the culture and the whatever here, and now you're taking me over there to another new thing that I have to go figure out again. And B, also I find that I don't know what the psychological term this is, but a lot of parents revert, I shouldn't even say revert, they actually continue using a parenting style that they would have used with the 3-year-old or the 4-year-old that they left. It's as if they still see the child that they left as 3 or 4, not understanding adolescent development and the developmental growth that has taken place from 3, 4, and the child is now 15, 16. And you treating a 15, 16-year-old like the 3, 4-year-old, and so you get the clash between the parent and the adolescent when there's that reunification, because the adolescent has been developing their own values and ideas and everything, and mom or dad is expecting them to just listen to what I say, as you did when you were 5 or 6 when I left you behind. So that I find is important when we say that they typically reunite during the adolescent stage. Another factor that sometimes we have to contend with when the adolescent reunites is that the parent over there has started another family. So the adolescent is now joining an already established family, and so they are the odd one joining a family. And so there is now they have to fit into what is an established routine, and so that again, and if it's not an adolescent, the child, is joining another family that's already having their patterns and routines. I also find that sometimes it is not a myth when they say Jamaicans have 2 jobs and whatever it is. When the Jamaican goes over there to help support their family in Jamaica,
there's an objective.
Thank you. They're doing whatever they can to do that. But what happens then is they're having 3 jobs, 2 jobs plus they're trying to do night school. And then the child joins them and there's no time. They have no time to help this child adjust because they're going from one job to the next job to school to whatever it is. And a child going into a new culture, a new school, a new family, a new home needs somebody there to help them to adjust. And I've heard particularly the adolescents, I was left on my own. I needed to figure it out on my own. And then that figuring out on the own can lead to them joining the inner city gangs in New York and Florida and cities all over the US and Canada, getting into selling drugs. And then the parent says, you ungrateful thing, look how I work hard to send for you, I'll bring you up here and you go join it. And it gets into that cycle. So we do need to process that the migration is on a spectrum. It doesn't just end when the parent leaves the child. If they're fighting for the child and bringing the child up, then we do need to continue looking at the impact and what can be done.
Mm-hmm. Part of the issue might be too, in your reunification, that the caregiver may have forgotten how difficult the transition was, because by that time they may have become acclimatized to the culture.
Exactly.
And they may also not recognize that they moved at a different developmental stage than their child, adolescent, or young adult is moving at.
Sorry, and I think also there is this general sentiment that children are resilient. They will bounce back. They will get it. They'll figure it out, and not recognizing that that's not necessarily, so they need help in figuring out some of these things. But yeah, you're correct. Yeah.
A whole lot of help and support. I do thank you for your time. I do thank you for your wisdom and your knowledge and your work. I am hoping that what you have shared, actually, I'm not hoping, I know it's going to be of help to individuals who watch this and other episodes in Rooted in Transitions. Thanks again, Prof. Pottinger.
It was all the best. Pleasure to join. I really hope that this was helpful.
It was. Thank you.